What's up, guys? How you doing? Bonnie here. So, for the people that have made it to this video, where this video is the start of the intermediate guide. Now, I put as a requirement in Discord a few days ago that you as a player should accumulate between 700 to 800 gold per minute and finish the game with as a minimum criteria for you to get well, in order for you to be able to watch this guide at the most effective state, basically. What I mean by that is that if you achieve 700 to 800 gold per minute in this game, every single game, that means you're doing a few things right. It means that you're farming well. It generally means that you are not dying that much in order for you to stay alive on the map for enough time in order for you to accumulate that much gold. And it just shows and proves to me and to you that you are at a certain level of play where you can actually move forward with your progression. Now, I do not recommend people to start watching this series before you watch the beginner guide that I've made. It's about 15 videos. It's a playlist. I will rename it, entitle it Beginner Nexus Guide playlist. Now, in this video, well, as you know, my first video actually for beginners was the build paths that you should take as a player in order for you to be as strong as possible. Now, that blueprint is highly ineffective whenever you're moving higher up within the skill bracket, because this game is a MOBA. Therefore, you have damage, you have resistances, you have mobility, you have crowd control, you got clearing potential with certain abilities that, you know, to farm minions faster, therefore allowing you time to rotate and move to the map, to a certain section of the map quicker, and so on and so forth. So the main point of this video is we're going to talk and analyze more the items and abilities and what works with best with each gun essentially, and how to counter kind of certain things. So it's going to be a bit boring, but if you do stay, and I hope you do stay till the end of the video and listen, take note, take mental notes, because it would just be highly ineffective, well, inefficient time-wise for me to put and write down all the specific scenarios that you can take XYZ, because it's just too time-consuming, and again, it's just going to be a blueprint. Having blueprints doesn't really allow you to think for yourself. Therefore, you know, you might get essentially clusterfucked whenever you have certain scenarios that either I forgot to mention or like write in the blueprint or whatever. So I'm just giving you basically the tools and the explanation in order for you to think for yourself. So this guide, again, I've said from the beginning, this guide is inclined for you. Actually, let me turn the sound because it's pissing me off. There we go. So as I've mentioned, this guide and the way that I play, I want you guys to be the main carry of the team. I want you to be the best version of yourself that you can, because this is the way to do it in order for you to progress as a solo player. Because not everybody has a team. Rarely people have like teams to play with. So most of the time you're going to be solo. So let's start with the abilities. Healing Sphere. Healing Sphere, we're not going to really talk too much about it, because it shouldn't be in anybody's build path that wants to be essentially a carry and you know, win games and kill everybody and so on and so forth. So we're not going to be talking about that. Rally Allies. Rally Allies, we're not going to focus too much on the utility that it brings to the team. We're going to be talking about the utility that brings to you, because again, we are wanting to be the best version of ourselves, and we want to be the main carry of the team, and we want to win the games on our own. So this provides us with 30% damage increase for 8 seconds, and it costs 60 mana and 30 seconds. A really good ability that goes really well with high damage weapons, like for example the hand cannon, the laser. Works well with SMG, like generally bursty weapons, because you have a window of time, as we know, that is 8 seconds, where you have 30% damage increase. So generally, this can offer you like basically the equivalent of free free weapon capacitor, like at level 3 worth of damage for a short period of time. So this is very good again for bursty weapons. It's not always the best case scenario. It just depends how far ahead you are in the game. This rally allies tends to work really well whenever you snowball the game, because this allows you to have the necessary damage for the 1v2s, 1v3s, so on and so forth. It's by no means the end all be all, or this ability should be taken up at all times, because it's not the case. But I recommend it to take it with hand cannon. I recommend you to take it with laser. There is a build with the SMG that you can take it with incendiary rounds, because the SMG is essentially a close range high burst weapon. So that allows you to be pushing very fast. That allows you to burst enemies really fast. Sniper works well, and then grenade launcher works really well with it as well. Shotgun as well works well, but the thing is with shotgun, the higher up you go in the skill bracket, people are going to know how to basically counter you in what position better, essentially. So in order for you to get the whole value of the 30% damage, first of all, you gotta be insane at aiming, because shotgun is one of the hardest weapons to use in the game. It's one of the hardest weapons in terms of how you have to position and know the map and have that game sense in order for you to position well, in terms of you getting that gap close to the enemies and being face on, so you don't have that damage drop off, because shotgun's got small range. So just a little brief: SMG, shotgun, hand cannon, laser, sniper, and grenade launcher. It is viable to take. Now, rapid fire support item, I'm not really going to talk about it. Haste aura, I'm not really going to talk about it, not really worth. Frost grenade, as a solo player, in order for you to kill people with it and like offer you that scenarios where that 50% slow, because that's what it says here, it does that 50% slow to be very effective in order to make the difference. It's not really that big. It's mostly a defensive item, and often used against like SMG slash like shotgun players that are really good. So I mean, I don't really worry too much about that. Again, it's a utility item. Toxic grenade. Now, this is extremely powerful, this toxic grenade. First of all, let's stop talking about the 50% healing reduce. The most of its value comes from wave clearing, short cooldown, and damage that it does. So it does 60 damage in total without any ability amplify damage. It allows you to clear waves of minions really quickly. For example, in the scenarios that we have at the moment with those people that are like rushing towers, that are rushing like turrets as their first ability, and then just rushing towers together. Now, this allows, well, the value comes from essentially the AoE, because it's got quite high range, like an area of effect that it can target multiple people and then lasts long on the ground as well. So essentially, if you hit somebody with a toxic grenade and then it takes the damage, and then they still stay or get in to the pool, or well, the toxic grenade creates, it damages them again. So basically, instead of doing 60 damage, you can do 100. That's without any ability amplify damage. So is very, very, very viable with pulse rifle, with SMG, um, with grenade launcher. Uh, Maybe an argument can be made with LMG, but I don't really like it that much. Pardon me, but overall it is a really, really strong ability, and it's very, very overlooked. It does wonders, especially with against teams, because teams have the tendencies to stay stacked in group and like move towards either objectives or like flanking people or whatever, um, together. So obviously, if one toxic grenade does 60 damage for one person, if there's two people, that is a cumulative 120 damage, for example. It is very good at cancelling sprint. That is very, very huge, because in a situation when you're running away, for example, and then you just pass a wall, if you throw that toxic grenade behind you, yeah, and okay, you get into combat and then you cancel your own sprint, but you also cancel the enemy's sprint as well. So that however many seconds, whether it's 1 2 or whatever, after you pass the wall, that distance that you've created, once you've cancelled the enemy sprint, can be very, very, very effective. I say my ass a lot of times. So toxic grenade is definitely a really, really important ability, and again, it pairs really well with pulse rifle, with SMG, sometimes LMG, and grenade launcher. Healing grenade, not really. As a solo player, I don't really use it. It's quite underwhelming, especially when I want to just go and kill everybody. It doesn't really offer that much sustain. Argument can be made that it's effective in team play when you're like stacked, but then again, we're not talking about team play because we don't really care about that. We want to just kill everybody and win games and carry games on our own, so not really going to focus on that. Rocket Strike. Rocket Strike's a very underrated item. Why? Because Rocket Strike is extremely powerful against long range weapons. So, for example, sniper, grenade launcher, which some people play for long range, not that effective. Grenade launcher is a short range gun. People that play pulse rifle, people that play LMG, people that play sometimes hand cannon, depending on the play style. Anyway, Rocket Strike is extremely powerful, but it is extremely powerful when you pair it with more AoE. So Rocket Strike goes really well with Toxic Grenade, for example, and it goes well with Grenade Launcher, because Grenade Launcher has insane damage early. Close range. But because you compare it with Toxic Grenade and Rocket Strike, for example, you got extremely big AoE. And because Toxic Grenade costs 40 mana and Rocket Strike costs 60 mana, that is 100 mana, is how much mana we have in total. So therefore you can cast both abilities in the same time, and it does a lot of damage. So just think about it. Most of the time you're going to hit, so unleash 7 rockets in that randomly strike within a targeted area. So basically most of the time you're going to hit between 2 and 3 rockets per use. So let's say you hit 2, let's lowball it, that's 80 damage, plus the toxic grenade, that's 60, that's 140 damage. That's half of the enemy's HP, and it's AoE as well, so it's very effective against teams as well, or like people that stack. You can counter push with it, you can zone with it. They are very, very good. Rocket Strike, especially paired with toxic grenade, that is the pair that you want to run. You don't want to run Rocket Strike on their own. You don't want to run, well, Toxic Grenade. You don't really have to pair it with that much, because Toxic Grenade is very, very good. But when it comes to Rocket Strike, I personally have found that the best pair with Rocket Strike is Toxic Grenade, 101%, and the best goes with Grenade Launcher. Argument can be made for something else, but I wouldn't play with it. So, Grenade Launcher, Rocket Strike, Toxic Grenade, that's the best value that you can get. Supercharge. Supercharge is very good when it comes to pushing. Now, some people just pair it really, really badly. They play with it for grenade launcher, very, very ineffective. This supercharge can only be paired with SMG and sometimes hand cannon if the enemy players are literally bots and they stand. Why it's not good with hand cannon is because the faster, well, the higher your fire rate is, the less accurate hand cannon becomes. Hand cannon is a accurate gun. If that accuracy goes, then the value of hand cannon drops significantly. So it shouldn't be paired basically with anything else apart from the SMG. You can make an argument that it can be paired with LMG, but the LMG has tougher aim than the SMG, and the way that you play with the LMG, because you're not going to go close range with an LMG to land on your shots. It's more of a mid-range gun, so you gotta have extremely good aim in order for supercharge to work, and it'll be paired up really well with rally allies. But when it comes to pushing, you can have an argument that a sniper with supercharge is going to be very, very effective when it comes to pushing, but I personally don't play sniper as a side lane or like a pushing gun, so therefore I'm not going to recommend that. Why I'm going to recommend supercharge is with SMG, and you get supercharge with either incendiary rounds or rally allies. I like rally allies with supercharge because if you get your SMG to level 3, that is very, very high burst damage, and with the 30% damage increase and the fire rate increase and the reload speed, you can melt somebody in a second basically. So but then that gets countered really badly by damage reduced. So I wouldn't pick supercharge and rally allies more often than I would pick, for example, incendiary rounds and rally allies for the SMG. Frag grenade, we're not really going to talk about it. Frag grenade is kind of garbage at the moment. Incendiary rounds, arguably one of the most, arguably one of the best abilities out there. It can go extremely well with a lot of items. A lot of guns. LMG, SMG, pulse rifle, laser. There's a build with laser with incendiary rounds and rally allies, and that's about it. Why it goes well with laser is because laser is not as versatile as hand cannon. Hand cannon is more of a mid-range to close range type of gun. So the thing with the laser is that you don't have that big of a damage drop off as you have with hand cannon from a long range. So but you also don't have the same fire rate as a hand cannon, so therefore you need, and so what that means is, because you're not getting up close to the enemies, you can't really, and you're at long range with the laser, for example, because that's how a laser should be played. Should be played as a long range gun, not really a close range. You have limited positioning yourself and the enemy, so therefore your line of sight to the enemy is way smaller, because you're prohibited by how much you can move from certain angles. Therefore you need all the damage that you can get, so you get 3 hits in with the laser. That is a lot of damage, plus the incendiary rounds that takes over time. That is a lot of damage. So but the main guns that you want to use it with is LNG, SMG, and pulse rifle, nothing else. Why? Because incendiary rounds is extremely well when you can stack it up really quickly. That means that your fire rate has to be high. That means that you have to use a gun that has a high fire rate, like LMG, like SMG, like pulse rifle, so you can stack up that incendiary rounds as quick as possible. Now we have flame burst grenade. I'm not going to talk about that because we don't pick it at all. Turret. Old man Smither's favorite. Turret is severely... It's okay. Turret is good. It's not overpowered in my opinion. Now, the higher level that you go, you're going to learn how to deal with them better. So, by now, you must have been playing against a lot of turret users. How you deal with them is you keep distance and you just kill it, basically. You almost in any scenario, you prioritize, well, the priority, let's say you have enemies, turret, plus players, you prioritize always the minions. 99% of the cases you prioritize the minions, then you prioritize the turret, then you prioritize the enemy. Because you have to get the free resources, essentially, which so far is gold and we have minions. If we don't kill it, somebody else will, whether it's our own allies, whether it's the turret, whether it's the enemies. So we want to prioritize getting that free goal. And then we prioritize getting that turret because that turret is stationary, therefore we can position accordingly in order for us to outrange it and then get that cleared with, and then the enemy is left with nothing else because the turret is dead, and then you can either decide whether you push the enemy, whether you put pressure on the enemy, whether you just stay defensively and just wait for the next turret that he places and kill it. Again, more situations are going to come and be shown in this guide and through my gameplay of how to deal with, the turret. But overall, if you use the turret should only be used, and I only use it with a sniper. Why I only use it with a sniper and why it's just good with the sniper, in my opinion, is because the turret offers you a safe angle. It offers you protection. So sniper is very, very fragile when it comes to high burst things, like getting flanked from an SMG or a shotgun or somebody with dash. Like, to put that turret in between you and the enemy can make the whole difference, because the enemy can be hitting that turret for like 2-3 seconds when he's trying to flank you, and then that could make the whole difference in the world at 2-3 seconds. So I personally only use turret, and I think and I believe that turret's only effective with a sniper. I wouldn't recommend you to use it with anything else, because it's, in my opinion, and I've done it so many times, you can kill it so easily, and then the enemy is left not doing anything for literally 45 seconds, and it costs 60 mana as well. So it's hard to pair with stuff with ultimate because it just costs a lot of mana. So yeah, that's my rant over on the turret. Tank self heal. So I'll tell you what self heal actually. We'll go the other way around. We'll go lifesteal. Lifesteal is very, very good at sustained heal. So let's say you're jungling, or let's say you're staying on lane for higher periods of time, although I prefer self heal on lane. But in the jungle, this is better than any other support type of ability like heal, because most of the time, whenever you're going to have lifesteal, you're most likely you should only have a level 3 gun. You'll never pick up lifesteal unless you're jungling early on. Now, when you have a level 3 gun, most of the time you're just going to one-shot each minion for one bullet. So let's take a hand cannon, for example. A headshot of a minion is 60 damage. Let's say there is a 4 minion wave with no super minion, therefore you can only do 240 damage maximum to kill that minion. So let's say you one-shot, you essentially headshot 4 minions. That is 240 damage. 20% of 240 is 48. So that, because it only lasts for 8 seconds and you can only hit whoever is in front of you. So in a situation where you're on the lane and then you're facing another opponent and then there's nothing else going on because he's, like, for example, zoning you out of the jungle camp, the free spider jungle camp on a river, you're not going to be able to use that lifesteal there. So let's say if you are low HP and you need to like regen more, and then you're not beside your turret to regen, then you can only regen on the minions in front of you. So that will only equate to 48 healing, for example. But this becomes better later on, especially it becomes really good when you're a good aimer and you get lots of kills and you do a lot of damage, because in a fight, if your accuracy is high, you can dish out a lot of damage. So let's say in a fight, in an 8-second window, with a shotgun, for example, or a hand cannon, you can dish out, let's just lowball it, and be, 500 damage in 8 seconds. It is very doable. Now, 500, 20% of that is 100 heal. So there you go. It's all it already provides more value than the self heal, which is a higher cooldown. And yeah, basically, because self heal only does 80 HP. And then also, it's way better when it comes to damage on tower and healing from the tower, because when you hit the tower, then obviously if you'll ideally use the lifesteal to get the full benefit out of it, out of the whole 8 seconds. Therefore, you are going to, let's say, hit the tower and nobody's beside you for 8 continuous seconds. A weapon that is a level 3. With a hand cannon, again, let's use that as an example, you're going to dish out roughly 720 damage. Well, 700, I don't know, maybe 800. So that's 160 heal from that. If you level 3 with no upgrades, if you can deal 800 damage on a tower from like 14 shots in those 8 seconds, there you go. That's, you know, double the value that self-heal provides. But with self-heal, you have a guaranteed 80 health every 30 seconds basically. So it's hard to think of the scenarios that would prioritize self-heal over lifesteal. But if you're not a great aimer and you need that extra sustain on lane, and you're facing somebody that puts a lot of pressure on you, so you're feeling overwhelmed, because again, we're at an intermediate level, so we're not at the highest level where your emotions should be turned off and you deal with, you know, you deal with whatever is, you know, thrown at you emotionless. You're gonna have these emotions like getting overwhelmed, getting frustrated, etc., and which will ultimately affect your aim. Self-heal, you should take self-heal because it provides a guaranteed 80 health for 30 seconds. Shield is extremely good against good players. It's extremely good against snipers. It's extremely good against high burst damage dealers, well, damage guns, and it's extremely good against nuke. Whenever you see nuke, whenever you're running like long range guns, and you're not yet at the level where you can just confidently get out of every nuke. I don't, but so yeah, mostly you'd want to take shield if they have a lot of nukes, because 40% out of, you know, 100 and what's it, 180, 150 damage, you know, that is almost, you're mitigating almost 60 but let's say 60 damage, and that can make a whole difference. 60 damage is a lot. 60 damage is 20% of your health that you're mitigating. So besides obviously like the damage that you take from like the weapon and etc. So essentially it does what it says. 40% for 4 seconds, 30 mana, very low cost mana, and it's a 30-second cooldown. So I would only use shield if they have nukes, and I would only use shield if the person that I'm fighting is running close range weapons like hand cannon and like shotgun, for example, or a grenade launcher. And those, I tend to have the scenarios where I face them a lot. So let's say I'm playing a shotgun, and then in the enemy team there is another good player with a shotgun or a hand cannon or a grenade launcher, and I'm finding myself fighting with them over and over and over again. Now 40% for 5 seconds, because that's mostly how long a head-on fight lasts, you know, can make the whole difference in the world, like 40% damage reduction. Now, if you're playing against long-range guns, if you're playing against like pulse rifle that's running, for example, toxic grenade incendiary rounds, this is not going to be beneficial. It's not going to be beneficial because that gun, that specific build that I gave an example of, has continuous pressure. This is the shield is very good at burst pressure because it's got a 5 seconds window of 40% damage reduction. Dash. Dash is the most noble ability in the game. You should not be playing with this as an intermediate. Do not play Dash. Dash is extremely hard to use, and you may think, okay, you see me getting, you know, almost 100 kills with Dash hand cannon build. You see other players getting like 50, 60 kills, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But you gotta remember, those players are competitive shooter players. They know how to aim. They use hand cannon, which is arguably one of the easiest guns to shoot with, and obviously coming from a background that they're, you know, highly skilled in shooting, this dash is going to benefit them. You do not need dash in order for you to be effective and perform in like carry games. Believe me, dash is going to come when we're going to be talking about the advanced, like, well, the highest level of play out there. Dash is not effective in the hands of beginners or like intermediate players because you simply don't need it. The value comes from understanding the map, having game sense, knowing when to get, well, where to get to the fastest, essentially using that speed, well, essentially using that time advantage that obviously the dash offers. You don't get a dash because you can dodge a grenade from a grenade launcher. No, it's the other things that come with the dash. Getting faster towards farm, getting faster towards rotations, getting faster to objectives, getting faster to the flanks. Things which will come with time and which are going to be presented in this guide for you guys that have made it to the intermediate stage, looking to progress further and take your skills to another level in this game, Nexus. Do not use dash. It is not good and it's not highly effective. We're going to be talking about ultimates because I've not really mentioned ultimates as a beginner. Why I've not really mentioned ultimates as a beginner is because you don't really need them as a beginner. You're going to face a lot of ultimates. You're going to have cash. You're going to get to the point in games where you're going to have enough cash to spend for an ultimate. You don't really need it because the abilities are more important, arguably, than the ultimates. You gotta know the game more in order how to use those ultimates to the um, biggest capability of the ultimate. It's not just simply as launching, because I see so many times like healing stations placed like way across the map, nowhere near an ally, therefore providing no value. And obviously, having an extra ability provides a distraction from you, well, from the people that were like watching and like that are beginners. They're providing a distraction for them not to focus on the core, which is the main abilities. I've during the tournament, when I've not used an ultimate at all, and I've managed to win the tournament without basically ever using ultimate. So, but now that we have more players and the skill level seems to be increasing among the average lobby, ultimates are necessary. So we're going to be talking about ultimates because we are going to be using a lot ultimates as intermediates and then progressing towards the highest level of play. So healing station, when you should take healing station. Healing station I like to take when fights are long. I tend to find myself in fights that are 1v2, that I'm facing another opponent that is very, very strong 1v1er, and this healing station can provide the whole difference. Now, it can also provide the difference whenever your team is pushing, but as solo players, solo carries, in order for you to win the game, you should take healing station whenever you don't see a lot of nukes in the enemy team, because nuke will counter your healing station. They don't have a lot of toxic grenades, because toxic grenade will counter your healing station. It's not going to be as effective. And now that you guys have, gone better into the game and more accustomed and have seen and have played quite a few games, and have seen other people using healing stations in different scenarios, it's very good for counter-attacking, is very good for simply attacking, it's very good for pushing, also provides team benefit. I know we're not talking about teammates and we don't need teammates in order for us to win games, that is true, but can't deny that provides a shit ton of healing for everybody else, that obviously is not just yourself. So healing station is a very, very strong pick. I wouldn't pick it with actually, I'm not going to say what I'm not pick it with. I'll let you guys judge the situations that a healing station should be picked. I've given you some examples, and voila, nuke. Nuke is very, very good against healing station. The nuke is very, very good at against people that tend to stay stacked. Now, what I mean by that is whenever you see lobbies and then whenever you see like friends turret stacking, pushing one lane, very fun. An early nuke can be very, very, very effective. Because obviously nuke has two purposes. Nuke has the purpose to take out enemies, but nuke has the purpose to take out the main carry of the enemy team, because unless they have blink dash, they cannot get out of a nuke if placed correctly. And by this point, you should be able to identify scenarios, or at least a few scenarios, where you would make it easy for yourself in order to place that nuke effectively. Bang on in the center of the enemy, so they don't have the time, because their movement speed is reduced, to get out of it, basically. So again, first scenario is identifying the carry of the enemy team. You just press tabs, he always got the most fucking kills, and then kill them. And the other scenario is whenever people are stacked, and the value comes from the damage multiplied by however many people there were there. Actually, it's got multiple purposes, but like for example, whenever you're defending but by that point the game is lost anyway. If you get to the point where there is like fucking 12 super minions in your base and they're at Nexus, and your last hope is to land that nuke, kill all the remaining minions, and then all the enemies are like low HP, you kill them as well, and then you get counter attack, or like that buys you enough time, that buys you another life, basically. We're not going to talk about that because that's a special scenario, so we're just not really applicable. But that's the main uses of nukes. Whenever they have healing stations, whenever you identify the enemy carry and then you want to target them, because obviously if you kill them, then most likely the enemy team, because if that's the only carry of the enemy team, is not likely going to survive a team fight against your team. Obviously, if you see fucking 4 sheeps like stacked on top of each other, it's obviously better to use the nuke on the people that are stacked, because obviously, let's say 4 people are stacked, 150 damage times 4 equals 600 damage as opposed to 150. Well, yeah. You get what I mean. And team shield is only good against nukes. So that's why in an ideal composition, your ideal composition should be formed of 2 nukes, 2 healing stations, and 1 team shield. Yeah. If you want to counter the nuke, you get a shield. If you want to counter the other nuke, you get team shield. And then the rest should be 2 nukes, 2 team shields in an ideal composition. But yeah, team shield, if only get nukes. Now, this is going to be the first video because as I'm recording, I've been recording for 37 minutes, so I'll let you guys digest this one, and then we're going to be moving about items. I know this video has seemed a bit like, I knew these, I know what toxic grenade does, but I think I've done a good, I hope I've done a good job to outline the cases that you'd pick those abilities, and what kind of abilities to pick and focus on, and what not to get, and what kind of to avoid, and don't just waste time experimenting with them, because I'm basically telling you that they're not good. And I'm just going to be thinking about the best way in order to showcase like how to build them, when to build them, when to take ability, and how to counter what. But again, I've given you in this video a little bit of like when to get, what to counter, and so on and so forth. So the next video is going to be items. And then the next video after that is going to be weapons paired with items and abilities, and what to take when exactly the enemy is going to have XYZ composition, how to counter, and etc. So thank you for watching. Welcome to the intermediate club. I hope you are going to like and appreciate these videos. I hope they're going to be effective for you. If you don't meet the set criteria of 700 to 800 gold per minute, please rewatch the beginner guide. It should be more than enough there in order for you to get you to that stage. Okay, see ya.